We previously reported that China is losing its status as the world's factory. The growing number of empty containers piling up in Chinese ports is confirming this. This is the current Yangshan Port in Shanghai, with mountains of containers piled up. The latest data from Container Exchange, a global container trading platform, shows that in the sixth week of 2023, the CAX, or Container Availability Index, of 40-foot containers in Shanghai Port reached 0.64, which has been above 0.6 for 11 consecutive weeks. A CAX value greater than 0.5 indicates that there is excess container equipment. Not only in Shanghai, but the phenomenon of empty containers piling up is also seen in Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and other major ports in China. The number of empty containers at Shenzhen Yantian Port in early January has hit a record high since March 2020, with empty containers stacked at 6 to 7 levels. The once congested road is now empty. Trucks are parked all over the parking lot. The China Shipping Information Platform reported that it's likely to break the largest empty container pile in the 29 years since Yantian Port opened. In December 2022, the empty containers at Guangzhou's Yangshan Port were already at twice the normal storage capacity, setting a new record for the highest empty container value since the outbreak in China. The situation is noted by the Wall Street Journal, which reported on March 2, 2023, that shipping from Chinese ports has slowed significantly, with empty containers piling up and trucks without cargo parked on the highways leading to the main terminals. A driver unloading a container full of kitchen cabinets at the Shenzhen port told the Wall Street Journal, "There are 16,000 registered truck drivers here, but only 3,000 are working right now. This is probably the worst year we've ever seen because Americans are no longer buying Chinese goods." The Chinese media can no longer avoid the problem either. A Shanghai port terminal operator recently told the media in China, "The terminals are full of empty containers, many of which are now stacked in Taicang, Jiangsu province, a site not seen in many years."
The empty containers in Shanghai ports are all piled up, and many of them have been piled up in Taicang, Jiangsu province, a phenomenon that hasn't been seen for many years. The phenomenon of empty containers piling up is not only in Shanghai ports, but also in all major ports in China. You may remember that in 2021, it was difficult to find a container in China. And at that time, if you got one, it meant you were about to get rich. Because at that time, China had a lot of goods to export, eh? Now it's the reverse. Too many empty boxes. It means exports have slowed down and not so much cargo to be shipped out.
We rarely work overtime anymore. When we worked overtime before, it was usually 12 hours on and 12 hours off, but now it's 12 hours on and 24 hours off. A worker driving a container truck at the Shanghai port told China's Zhenmian News on February 15th that there were many empty containers at the port today and their workload has suffered as a result. With so many empty containers, it's only natural that shipping prices will take a big hit. According to the Freightos Baltic Index, the cost of sending a container from China to Los Angeles in the last week of February fell from US $15,600 in 2022 to US $1,238 this year. On February 13th, China Port Container Network released the China Export Container Freight Index for January. Among them, the composite index fell by 11.2% month-on-month, the price index of European routes fell by 16.7% month-on-month, and the US West and US East routes fell by 7.8% and 9.8% respectively. So far, China's monthly export container freight index has fallen for the fifth consecutive month since it fell across the board in September 2022. As described in a report in Washington Daily, large liner companies have reduced capacity from Asia to Europe and the US. Large liner companies such as Mediterranean Shipping Company have stopped 1/3 of their scheduled capacity from Asia to the US and 20% of their capacity from Asia to Europe in the past 3 months, canceling dozens of ships. In the past year or two, manufacturing supply chains have begun to move out of China and are now accelerating. The contributing factors include the impact of strict CCP anti-epidemic measures and power outages and restrictions on the manufacturing supply chain, as well as increased competition between the US and China and rising geopolitical risks such as a potential war in the Taiwan Strait. China's exports fell nearly 10% year-on-year last December, the third consecutive monthly decline and the biggest drop since the beginning of 2020. Exports have continued this trend into 2023. The CCP has officially acknowledged this. Director General of the Department of Foreign Trade of China's Ministry of Commerce disclosed the foreign trade sector at a press conference held by the State Council Information Office on February 2nd, admitting there has been a significant change from last year's blocked supply chain and lack of fulfillment capacity to the current weakening foreign demand and declining orders. A considerable number of Chinese companies have already felt the pressure of a sharp reduction in orders in 2022, and it will be more obvious in 2023. January 23rd was the Chinese New Year, and many migrant workers in China just returned from a 2-week-long holiday and found themselves facing another holiday upon returning to the factory. This is a well-known US-funded semiconductor company, ATC China in Shanghai. The company announced in an internal email that it would be on holiday from February 27th to March 5th. The company employees revealed that the company lost orders due to the downturn in the chip market. In addition, ATC has increased its production capacity and capital investment in Vietnam. We have a big problem, brothers. Dongguang Jirong Technology Company Limited is on holiday from February to May for 3 consecutive months. What should I do? What about the tens of thousands of employees? Should we quit this job and compete with others for other jobs? Guys, I'm on leave too. Friends, the situation isn't good. I just received a notice. The factory will be closed tomorrow for 4 consecutive days. Earlier, it was said to have 2 days off per week. Now it's started to take a break. The situation is dangerous. If this goes on, we working people won't even be able to feed ourselves. The factory doesn't have a guaranteed salary, nor does it include food and lodging. If this goes on for too long, I believe that we the working people will all have to leave. I don't know when there will be work again. Inside the factory, the material is all bent, but no welding. It's all covered up. Right now, only the ladder procedure, grinding and polishing are still being done. I don't know how long this situation will continue. It's so tough. In fact, many small business owners in China don't foresee the lack of orders and are confused by what is happening. It's February 17th, 2023, and it's been more than half a month since we first opened up. In previous years, this would be the busiest time of the year for us brass door factories because every year around the Chinese New Year, there would be a huge backlog of orders. But what's going on this year? The government said that the economy would improve after the anti-epidemic measures were lifted. This joke is too big. After 3 years of hard struggle, not only did we not make any money, but we even lost all our money. In order to survive, we had to lay off more than 2/3 of our staff. I can't even think about those brothers who had been with me for more than 10 years. After the Chinese New Year, I thought the economic winter had passed. Watching the official media news that talked about various good economic policies, I judged that the spring of our brass door factory should come. So, I called the brothers back, ready to work hard and turn the pent-up 3 years of frustration into energy. Now the brothers are all here, but where are the orders? Where did the orders go? Yesterday I spoke with several friends in the brass door industry. It turns out everyone in the industry, in the construction industry, is the same. In order to ensure the production rate, the unit price of the order is lowered again and again. Some are even lower than the cost. Everyone is desperately trying to snatch orders. After all, labor costs and plant costs, these costs can't be reduced. So, even if the quote is lower than the cost, fulfilling the order would mean a little less of loss at least. This situation is beyond words. It's too difficult, too tough. Guys, are you getting a lot of orders? Now that we don't need to wear masks, the market should be picking up, and there should be more orders. Why don't we feel busy in the equipment procurement business lately? Now the equipment has moved, that is, nothing is sold, and no money is made. Now people are panicking. After 16 years in the shoe business, there has never been a year as bad as this one. This year, the small bosses in Guangzhou have all left. There are several hundreds of them. The change in the exchange rate is adding to the misery of the Chinese bosses who have little profit to speak of. In 2023, the exchange rate of the US dollar to the RMB is 6.7. Compared to last year's rate of more than 7, it has fallen a lot. If the transaction or delivery is to be based on the price negotiated last year, I believe many people will lose money. Last year, because of the high exchange rate, the price was lowered and attracted many customers. Since we negotiated with customers last year, if the price increases now, won't that push customers away? Therefore, we can only find ways to communicate with suppliers to see if the purchase price can be reduced a little to compensate for the loss. On the customer side, we can explain the situation and make a nominal increase. We can only absorb the rest of the loss slowly. China's foreign trade exports continue to decline. It's a big hurdle for many foreign trade businesses determining whether they can survive.
I don't know how to live my future in the face of all kinds of order cancellation trends. Rent has to be paid, and workers have to be paid too. But orders are being cancelled for various reasons. Although I have more than 10 years of experience in foreign trade, this is the first time I experienced such a situation.
A fact that has to be said is that the epidemic in the past few years has led to a disaster. Now people in this industry have no more confidence in the industry. This is the current state of the manufacturing industry.
I can't take it anymore. I don't have a single order. Now the workshop has stopped production for another week. Now we are retaining more than 30 employees. The average salary per employee is 5,000 yuan. A day's salary plus factory rent and various other expenses cost more than 10,000 yuan a day. I don't want to stop production. After all, I've been holding on for so long. I don't want to waste all my previous efforts. But if we go on like this, I really don't know when it will end. The expenses are too big. The hard-earned savings from previous few years have almost been wiped clean. It's really like going back to 10 years ago in one day.
Shenzhen is a renowned working city in China. After the Chinese New Year holiday, a large number of young people from small cities or villages return to Shenzhen to work in factories. This is a popular bus station in Shenzhen. It used to be very busy with big and small employment agencies around the station. But now there are only people with their heads down and the bus station is closed. Many people are carrying their luggage around looking for jobs, but they can't find any. Now I'm here at the entrance of the Jianggang New Industrial Zone. There is a big crowd here again. There are people looking for jobs everywhere. Just now, you have seen, Shenzhen is very crowded. Everywhere are people looking for work, the bus platform, the entrance to the industrial area, and park benches under the bridge. Everywhere is crowded with people looking for work, but there is no work. There aren't many factories that want people, so for those who haven't left for Shenzhen, don't come for the time being. Those once vibrant cities in Guangdong province have now been feeling a sense of depression. Do you know the villages in Dongguang where migrant workers live are getting less crowded, and many places have started to become empty? Yes, you heard it right. They're all empty. Look here. The whole apartment building isn't rented and can't be rented. No matter how cheap the rent is, it's useless. This is a factory dormitory. You see, in the past, the balcony here was full of clothes hanging to dry, but now there is basically no one. Looking at the situation of hanging clothes, it's estimated that even 1/3 aren't rented out. Also, there aren't many people living in the dormitory. A few days ago, a friend of mine told me that the wages here in Dongguang have dropped, and many of them can only get a low salary, and there is not much work, so they cannot work overtime. so they are reluctant to come to work in Dongguan. I have a friend who is a secondary landlord. He talked to me about it, saying that recently it has been very difficult to find a job for those who come to work, so he has surrendered the rental house. The first point is that many factories have reduced their salaries. Many people can't accept lower wages than before. Secondly, many big companies have closed down. A few days ago, a local toy factory here with thousands of workers closed down. This used to be an industrial area filled with factories and plants. Now this area is all to be demolished. I believe many people remember these factories. Look, here is also to be demolished. The area involved is very large, and this industrial area is massive. This area is as well. The front is to be demolished. It's all empty and all to be demolished. That side is also to be demolished. This side has finished demolition. That side used to be an electrical factory. In addition to the accelerating supply chain out of China, the US economic situation has a direct impact on China's exports as well. For years, the US and China have had a huge trade deficit. The US Department of Commerce released statistics on February 7th this year that the US trade deficit with China was $382.9 billion in 2022. Now, Americans are shifting more of their spending to food, fuel, and services. Rising inflation has eroded American demand for many products, leaving retailers with an oversupply of goods. If American consumers continue to spend, built-up inventories would be depleted, and demand for imports would resume. However, if the US economy continues to shrink, it would be more difficult for China's foreign trade industry.
Orders are really low. The garment OEM giant Shenzhen Knitting Corporation Limited has shrunk by 2/3. Many employees said there was less overtime and longer holidays, and many jobs were halted. The main reason is still a reduction in orders. Big names like Nike and Puma account for 84% of Shenzhen's international businesses, and inventories of these companies' products are climbing rapidly this year. These customers, which were originally an advantage, have become the weakness of Shenzhen International during the economic downturn. Faced with a sharp drop in orders from foreign brands, Shenzhen International turned to Anta, Li-Ning, and other domestic brands. This change may be a new way out.
The contraction of the US economy will also affect international shipping. Amazon.com, Target, and Home Depot are the shipping industry's biggest customers, and the future of these big customers is now full of uncertainty, making the future of the ports and shipping industry in China shrouded with uncertainty. In addition, the US Department of Commerce announced on February 7th this year that 2022 foreign trade data showed that for the first time since 2019, the US imported $538.8 billion in products from China in 2022, lower than the US imports of $553 billion from the EU countries. That is, China lost its position as the top trading nation of the US. As you can see, this is the result of 3 years of strict COVID-0 policy by the Beijing government, and the sources of US supply have become more diversified, especially with increased supply from other Asian countries.